On the line with me right now, Booby Blitz from Overkill. Bobby, thanks for taking the call.
Hey, my pleasure, Mal. Good to be talking to those down under.
Excellent. Now, I spoke to you back in June of 2014, right when White Devil Armory was due to come out. What's been happening for Overkill in the time since?
Well, geez, it's funny. We're constantly working on a clock. I mean, this has been the way it has been for us for approximately 3+ decades, and that is to write, record, promote, and tour. And that's what's happened since White Devil Armory. The release in early 2017, approximately a year ago, was the Grinding Wheel, which we spent the majority of 16 working on. So now we're moving into the next phase, ending our touring down in Australia with you guys, and from there get back into the writing. So the clock is still running as it normally does.
Yeah, okay. Did you give yourselves any time off in between the touring for White Devil Armory and setting down recording Grinding Wheel?
That's for rock stars. We're hard-working blue-collar guys.
Yes, I know. Overkill have always been a very hard-working band. Straight into it, right? What's the recording process that works for Overkill? All bands have a different sort of system. What works for Overkill?
Well, for us, I mean, coming from the old school, it's, to some degree, it has to be physical. And what I mean by that is standing in the room with the others, demo, splitting a pizza, splitting a beer, sweating, coming up with some good ideas occasionally, or even more than occasionally going, oh my God, that sucked. And then, moving from there into what the modern era offers us, and that's the Pro Tools and trading back, files back and forth over the internet, because instantaneous ideas can be traded from home now. So we use kind of a combination of the old, let's sweat it out and tune the guitars up, to the modern day of let's get down with the computers and exchange our ideas. So it works both ways for us. So it's a combination of the old and the new.
Yeah, okay. And you're happy with that?
Well, we've adapted to it. Yeah. We've never abandoned, the studio rehearsal space. That to us is necessary. I think it gives us a link to how we started, and I think there's something very humbling about saying, sure, this was still worth it back then. And to some degree, when you think of music, or you think of this type of music, metal in general, aggressive, I think it needs to be presented as a group. Or understood as a group, as opposed to individuals just coming up with ideas. So the combination really worked for us, and I think this keeps us grounded to the past. Yeah,
okay. The Grinding Wheel. Tell us about that album. Very, to me, polished yet still raw, and very in your face. How do you feel about that?
Well, I like saying that if you want the flag, come take it, but you got to come through us first. So it's got a good feel to it. It's still got some snot, but I think there's also, like you said, polished. And what it shows is, I think it shows the diversity that we came from. I just used the phrase saying being linked to the past, and it doesn't mean we live in the past, but for sure we remember where we were as to know where we are. And I think that this is the punk rock of the 70s and the 80s that we loved, being introduced to the new wave of British heavy metal soon after, embracing the Priests and the Maidens and the Thin Lizzies, but getting into the groove of the Sabbaths or the groove of modern metal, and also the hardcore that we were surrounded with in New York. So I think these being influences of ours from the early days and still loves of ours in the present day, I hear it on the Grinding Wheel. I hear that diversity, the thrash of Mean Green Killing Machine, the doom of the title track, the hardcore of Red, White, and Blue, and the punk of Goddamn Trouble. So I think that what you get is a polished version of what we were about musically in our lives.
Yeah, no, it's a good summary. Now, let's talk lineup. You've had a few people go through Overkill over the years, but you've been relatively stable for quite a while now, but you've just replaced a drummer. Now, Ron left. Now he had to be replaced by Eddie as a touring member, is that right? And then we've moved on and Jason's joined the band?
It seems like you got it all right in order there. That's exactly how it went. Well, Ron finished paying Dee Dee and I back the money he owed us, so we told him to get lost. But there's, Ron split because of personal reasons, which were never really revealed to us. I mean, we've always kept our, I think we've always kept our families in the forefront of this. They're invited. They can tour. They can, and Ron needed to be home, and that was really the only reason he gave us. And we left the door open for him for a year, and Eddie stepped in. But we knew that was temporary, not just from our thinking, but also from Eddie's. And when Ron said, no way, can't happen, Jason was the one we called. And, we've known Jason since he was a kid. I mean, he was a Berkeley School of Music graduate, but he was hanging around Overkill shows when he was 17, 18 with 2 drumsticks in his pocket, waiting for somebody on the stage to have a heart attack, hopefully the drummer, so he could jump in. And even when he joined Shadows Fall, he would stop by Overkill shows and ask to play, and we've let him in the past. So it was a good relationship, and I'll always defer to being with people I like. Great that they're talented, but for touring as long as I have, and Dee Dee and Dave, for that matter, has been here for 2 decades, we want to be with people we like, and Jason fits that mold, but brings the talent with him. So it's a nice, fresh lineup, and Jason has added a little more snap to it. So very exciting for us at this particular period of time.
Excellent. Now, been touring for a while, obviously, going to come down to Australia. Now, you're coming down for a string of shows. Now, you're crisscrossing the country. You're doing us here in Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, in that order. Now, did the person who booked these shows not have a map?
Obviously not, and he's Australian. He doesn't know how big the fucking country is. Yeah. I mean, I get the point. We kind of looked at it. Believe me, we Googled mileages while we were getting ready for this. Going, oh shit,
yeah, good idea. Yeah,
that's going to be a run. But take heart in the fact that we get all of our drugs directly from the pharmacy, and we spend no money on the streets anymore. Awesome. So we should be fine for every show. Yeah.
Now you're playing here in Adelaide, first time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow.
That's correct. When we were there in 2010, we had a trilogy of shows. That was Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. This one is 2 added. That is Adelaide lead off, and Perth to close the 5 shows.
Yeah. Okay. Now, playing in Adelaide at Fowler's on February 28th. You're playing with 2 local bands, Truth Corroded and Shadow Realm. That will be an absolutely magnificent show.
Well, we surely look forward to it. Yeah, I mean, it's this is our second dip down there, which is cool. The first time it was eyes wide open kind of a thing. What appeared or what we thought in anticipation to be a different culture, but found out we were really among cousins with regard to being an American. I think this is actually more like the American culture than it is, for instance, the Brits. And felt really at home. And regardless of where you are in the world, the great levelizer or equalizer is the 4 count into the first song, and then everybody's speaking the same language. And it brought me back, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane the first time around, brought me back to, the 80s somewhere in my head with regard to the excitement when the circle pits started funneling and the stage diving started happening. So I look forward to a great second jaunt down there.
Awesome. Now, I don't want to sound pompous with this question, but Overkill, you've had a long career as a band. Looking back, how does your legacy sit?
Well, I mean, there's a great satisfaction here. There's you get one life, and we've never been the kind of guys who, again, vacation on desert islands and drive Lamborghinis. It's it never happened that way for us. I mean, we're hardworking blue collar guys who who have kept the principles instilled in us by our mothers and fathers and our uncles. You know, work hard and keep your fucking mouth shut. And that's and that's how it should be for us. But a great satisfaction comes out of that because it feels as if you've gotten over on life's bad joke, and that's how you could fail. In this case, we've met a lot of people all around the world who are very much like us, and somewhere in that becomes a great strength and a great satisfaction. So to say to do this for 38 years and talk to a guy like you in Adelaide who says, hey, it seems that you guys are still delivering the goods here, this many years later, it obviously meant something to us every step. And I think looking back on it, there's a huge amount of satisfaction to say, hey, we did this the way we wanted, to compare it to no one, but to reap the satisfaction for ourselves and for those others who love it also.
What's the funniest thing that's happened to Overkill on tour?
The funniest thing that's happened to Overkill on tour? Oh, my God. I mean, we're talking 38 years. I mean, half of it is laughs. I'm sitting in Pittsburgh one day in 2005. I'm in a bar. I meet a cop I know for lunch. He says to me, how's the new drummer Ron? I said, that's right, you don't know him. I said, do you happen to have your police uniform in the car? He said, yes, I do. He goes, I could write a warrant. He came to the bus an hour later and arrested Ron, because Ron had never met this guy. So he has him out behind the bus, and we're filming. He's got his hands up on the bus, and the cops frisking him and everything, saying that he has a warrant for his arrest. He's going to have to see a judge, et cetera, et cetera. And Ron has just crapped himself in his pants. And that was handcuffed, being led away to one of the cars. So I think that was probably on the high end of funny.
Wow. Okay.
We're nice, but we're not that nice.
Booby Blitz from Overkill, absolutely magnificent talking to you again. And all of Adelaide, looking forward to you coming down here February 28th at Fowler's in Adelaide. Thanks for talking to me today. You have a great day.
Mal, it was a pleasure. We'll see you soon in Adelaide. Horns up.